Hey, I'm Shane, and welcome to the next week of our series called Be Humble. In it, we're talking about how to reflect Jesus' humility and confidence. As a reminder, humility simply means freedom from pridefulness or arrogance. So people who have humility are people who don't show off all the time or don't act like they're the best, don't talk down to other people, and generally aren't out there acting like the greatest in the league. That's exactly the kind of person I want to be. But if I'm honest, it's not always the kind of person I've been. In fact, I'll never forget in middle school when this little genre of music called emo music was actually a pretty big deal. And see, you had to know the bands and you had to know the lead singers of these bands and the songs that they sang. And I just wasn't that into it. But I had some people in classes with me that knew it all. So what would I do? Well, I'd kind of fake it until I made it. They would start talking about an album that was about to drop or this lead singer's backstory. And I would just roll with it like I knew exactly what was going on. They seemed to know all the coolest things. And what I knew, it just couldn't compare. So I tried to act like I knew more than I did. I tried to just seem cooler at the time than maybe I was, or at least was to them. Now look, it might not be your knowledge of emo music, but we've all been there, right? We've all let our pridefulness win at times. We've all felt the desire to be better or at least be as good as other people. And we've all scrambled to make ourselves seem better when we feel like we don't measure up. Maybe we've made jokes about something that our friend told us in private just to embarrass them. Maybe we spread a rumor at someone else's expense so that everyone would just stop talking about us. Maybe we posted something hurtful in the comment section to get back at a person who hurt us. Maybe we celebrated someone else's failure as our own win. But have you ever wondered why? Why do we do this? Why do we feel the need to look like we're better than other people? Why do we tear people down or talk badly about them? Why are we tempted to do whatever it takes just to build ourselves up? Even to act like you know something that you don't actually know? Look, I think the answer is simple: comparison. Comparison gives us this constant desire to see how and where we measure up. It leaves us asking other questions like, am I better than them? Am I smarter than them? Am I funnier? More popular? More likable than them? Sometimes comparison leaves us feeling worse about ourselves. If we don't measure up, our self-confidence takes a big hit. I remember I used to feel so bad about myself in those moments with my friends. I felt like it was information and details that I should know because it was the cool thing to know. And other times in our life, comparison leaves us feeling better about ourselves. It gives us a sense of satisfaction that we feel better than others in some way. But at the end of the day, it never takes us anywhere. Sure, we might take pride in the fact that we feel like a better ball player, or a better student, or a better friend than other people for a while, but eventually someone else will come along who we just can't compare to. And then, well, the cycle starts all over again. There's no win in comparison. None. So what if there's a better way to live? What if we could live our lives in such a way that we avoid the urge to compare ourselves to others? What if we could keep our own pridefulness from driving our decisions? What if we could choose the way of Jesus, the way of humility and confidence? Like I said, that definitely sounds more like the person I want to be, and I imagine it might be who you want to be too. Today, we're going to look at a verse from a letter that was written by this guy named Peter. Peter was one of Jesus' closest friends. He followed Jesus the entire time Jesus did ministry on earth. So I'd imagine that Peter really knew what he was talking about when he wrote this letter. After Jesus' death and resurrection, Peter played a huge role in encouraging people to live the way that Jesus called them to live. And often, Peter did that by writing letters. In the one that we're going to look at today, Peter was encouraging leaders to serve and lead people the way that Jesus did, with humility and confidence. This is what Peter wrote. And all of you, dress yourselves in humility as you relate to one another. For God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. I don't think Peter was trying to speak literally about fashion here. He wasn't talking about what you put on literally. He was talking about the attitude you choose every single day. Peter was telling us to dress in or put on humility, to choose humility in how we see ourselves, how we carry ourselves, and how we compare ourselves to other people. And in choosing humility, we're choosing the way of Jesus. Because as Peter put it, God gives grace to the humble. Let me show you what I mean. See, when we choose to put on humility, that means we have to take off something else. We have to take off all of the things that keep us in the comparison trap. We have to take off things that tell us that we aren't enough, or that we don't measure up, or that we have something to prove, or that we aren't liked. We have to take off comparison and put on humility in its place. When we do this, we're actually disrupting the cycle of comparison. And we get to choose to be confident in who we really are and what we're really made for. We can, like Peter said, dress ourselves in humility. We can do this. Be you, be humble. Now, in case you're sitting here thinking, does this mean that I have to pretend to not be good at things, or to feel badly about myself all the time, or to not celebrate my accomplishments? The answer is absolutely not. Dressing in humility doesn't mean that we make ourselves smaller or quieter or different. It simply means that we choose to find our confidence and worth in the right place, in God, who created us, designed us, cares about us, and says that we're loved. God didn't create you to be just like everyone else. God created you just the way you are, and that is definitely something to celebrate and be proud of. In fact, it's why we shouldn't give into the cycle of comparison in the first place. We don't need to compare because in God's eyes, we always measure up. So remember, be you, be humble. And here are a few ways that you can start to do this. First, choose to resist comparison. When you feel yourself being pulled to compare, ask God to give you grace. Ask for the help that you need to resist comparison and choose confidence and humility instead. Second, celebrate yourself. There's nothing wrong with taking pride in the way that God made you. Choosing humility doesn't mean that you can't acknowledge or celebrate all that God has done for you. So, as you work on being you and being humble, do that by thanking God for the things that you love about who you are and how God made you. And then third, look for opportunities to build others up. Instead of looking at others through the lens of comparison, look at them and ask yourself, how can I build them up? In fact, one of the quickest ways to get out of the comparison cycle is to celebrate others instead. So look for ways to build up the people around you when you feel tempted to compare. And then fourth, find someone who does this well. Who in your life is authentically and humbly themselves? Who celebrates the way that God made them with confidence? Who builds others up? Look for an adult in your life whose example you can turn to when you need help with this. Here's a hint, your small group leader might be a great person to look to. Remember, God wants you to be you, be humble. And honestly, your group is a great place to start. That way, you don't have to do it alone. You can encourage each other to stay out of comparison and choose confidence in who each of you are instead. So I hope you'll open up about that with your group. And when you head to group, I want you to think about this question. How am I tempted to compare myself to others?